I'm really excited to be able to talk about foundation plantings. They are kind of near and dear to my heart. I had spent a lot of time with some home builders for many, many, many years. So foundation plantings, I have a lot of my own strong opinions, so I'll try to temper those. But let's just jump right in. I've been designing for about 10 years now, and I do have also a building background. And so hopefully I can help people with the different questions that have been submitted. There were a lot of really good questions and a really beautiful practice. So first, foundation plantings, they are rather simple in that usually they are planted around the home or the building foundations, the walls. Usually designers like to put slightly taller plants at the corners or shorter plants under windows so that we don't block the views. And therefore, the need for dwarf or low-growing plants is in high demand in dealing with the larger windows that we're seeing in the homes these days. We have windows going almost down to the ground. Makes it very challenging to put plants in front of those windows. So those are some of the things we think of when we do the foundation plantings. There are 3 or 4 important takeaways on foundation plantings. The very first takeaway, and we found this out the hard way, is to test your soil. Even though we think we all have this clay soil, which tends to be slightly acidic in this area, we are always surprised when we test it, because if you test your soil, you may be surprised to find out there's a small area that plants are mostly happy in a neutral zone from about 6 to 7. So 7 on the pH scale is considered neutral, and 6 to 7 is where most plants can take up the nutrients more easily when the pH sits between that 6 and 7 scale. What happens is in our natural ecosystems, when you have an oak hickory forest, sometimes they slide down towards the acidic side, which is below 6. So something like blueberries and rhododendrons and azaleas, they tend to want to be below 5.5 on the pH. So what happens is concrete, our foundations, raises the soil pH. And if you don't test your soil, you may be fighting very hard on your soil. It's more alkaline than you think it is. Over time, the concrete foundation, the concrete walkways, the concrete driveways, they are leaching a calcium compound that's found in the concrete into the soil. And this is going to make it very difficult to grow plants that favor that more acidic soil. You can try to fight Mother Nature, and you could try to put down some soil acidifiers, some soil amendments, sulfur sulfates. Oh, they're all available out there. The problem is you're going to have to continue to amend and amend and amend. And wouldn't it just be easier to find those native plants that actually prefer this alkaline type soil? So I love using the Hydrangea Macrophylla as an example, because here's a plant that shows you when it's happy in its supposedly lower pH zone. Most of you probably are familiar that this Hydrangea Macrophylla, the mop head, is supposed to be blue if your soil pH is 5.5 or lower. But in our area, our pH tends to be 5.5 to 6.5. So when we buy those cute little blue mop heads and put them in the ground, over time they start changing to this lavender color, still beautiful. But you're like, what happened to my blue mop head? And so over time, as you continue to watch these flowers change, they're going to actually slide on over to pink if you keep letting it become more and more neutral. So sometimes the mop head actually turns pink when your soil is 6.5 or higher. Until you know exactly what kind of pH your soil has, you may want to try to avoid blueberries, raspberries, rhododendrons, and hollies, or any plants that tend to prefer this lower or more acidic soil, lower pH, more acidic soil. So we are looking for the right plant in the right location, and we are therefore looking for plants that can tolerate a pH over 7.0, which is known as more alkaline soil. I'm happy to send this over to you, Margaret, and you can post. I actually made this into a spreadsheet. So in order to fit the slide, it's a little small. But
Adele, have you been sharing? You are not shared your screen. You'll need to share.
It's not sharing?
I'm sorry.
Oh.
That was a perfectly good introduction happen? Without any sharing, but I had unshared you when we started. Sorry about that.
Oopsie. Oh, you missed all those good slides.
So sorry.
How do I do
sorry.
that? No, that's fine. Oops.
Yeah. Cover share.
Where do I go?
You may need to back out of whatever view you're in.
Oh, screen share. Got it.
Okay, good.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Oh, dear. Sorry, everyone. That was my mistake. We had it going to fine a minute ago.
Sorry, everyone.
Oh, you got it.
You sure?
Well, we have your background.
Okay. Technology is not my favorite thing.
No,
oh, is this it? Yes. Okay. Ta-da.
Yeah, that did it. Okay.
All right, so this is the beginning, and then there was foundation plantings, and then why to test your soil, the pH. Concrete raises the soil pH. Here's my hydrangea example. Here's the acidic loving plants that we want to avoid. These are all appearing on the screen now.
They are. You're in like your working view, and you could either do that or a slideshow view, whatever works best for you.
If I slideshow it, it might show up bigger. Oh, hey. Nope, I don't want to touch the top there.
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to keep going.
Don't.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, I don't want to touch that.
You don't have to take a chance.
Exactly. So this is a little hard to read, but what I have here are shrubs that tolerate the higher pH soil, and we have the full sun shrubs here, part shade, part sun here, and then full shade on this side. And some plants can span them. So like if they're full sun to part shade, they kind of bridge like this. Some plants are highly versatile, highly adaptable, and so they actually look like a white strip across. Or let's say they only like part sun. So that's how to read this chart. And we will refer.
Adele, someone points out that the slideshow icon is at the bottom. I think that's the bottom left. So that might be worth a try. Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, great. And we can post this on the Plant Nova Native website when you get a chance, because this is some pretty cool plants. Some are more well-known and some are not. I'm slowly working my way through this list myself. So really some interesting plants on here. And I will refer to them as we get to the actual properties. The second takeaway, other than testing your soil, is I really try to get people to try to start with the larger plant material first. We get excited when we go to the store and we fall in love with flowers, which tend to be perennials. And so we forget that we're building a garden around a backbone of important plants. I try to urge people to start with trees and shrubs, and then to start adding in the herbaceous layer. So this is kind of a really nice layout of how to remember that trees and shrubs can get very, very large. And so the third takeaway is try to avoid planting any large shrubs or trees within 10 feet of your home. So here's an example of trying to do your shrubs first and your trees first, and then adding in the different herbaceous layer, ground cover layer later. These are all different examples. Here's an example of trying to stay 10 feet off of your foundation with the large material. And I see this all the time when I go visit. This is a sweet bay magnolia. When it was planted, it probably was very, very, very cute, maybe 5 feet, 6 feet. And they put it 2 feet off the house. If I shrink this guy a little bit, here's your house foundation. Here's the stem. They planted it 2.5 feet, 3 feet off their foundation. And now it is sitting right smack in front of their house. Or this happens even more, and this is heartbreaking. Okay. Here is a homeowner that inherited a giant red oak. Literally, I don't know if it was planted or if it was existing and they built a house nearby. It is only 8 foot off the corner of the home. And over time, it split into 2 stems, and one of the stems leans over the house and goes over the neighbor's roof. And it died. And they brought in an arborist to confirm that it was not revivable. And I see this throughout our entire area. When you have a large tree like that, it's very sad to see it go, and it's super, super expensive to cut it down properly, grind it up, haul it away, and dispose of it. So no matter how cute they look, resist that urge to plant trees and shrubs within 10 foot or more of your foundation. And then the last takeaway before I jump into questions is to look at your existing mature trees to get an idea of what the natural plant community may be, as to give you a hint to what plants would grow well on your property. All of us have some existing trees, whether they are, planted or old growth or second growth, it doesn't matter. It does tell us when they're big and mature that they're happy. And so they form their own little ecosystem on your property. Your mature trees can tell you a lot about your soil. And one of the nice things is we can go online to the Virginia DCR and look up your natural plant community and use it as a reference, because in nature, if the plants are already growing together and co-evolving together, they have the best chance of succeeding together. So they're like your Mother Nature's best companion plants. So here's an example of a client that they have red oaks, black oaks, hickories, redbuds, and dogwoods on their property. So when you type that all in, it brought up that they belong to a basic oak hickory reference community that enjoys southeast exposure, dappled shade under the mature red oaks and the black oaks with morning and afternoon sun. So they had a slope and they were trying to do some erosion control. And so this plant list was generated from the plants that normally would exist in that reference natural community. We have over 300 natural communities in Virginia. So we are designers and we're not doing restoration work, but we do like to rely on the ecological background or ecological information that's provided by the DCR. They are detailed and they are all easy to find online if you're interested in trying to find natural plant companions based on these natural communities. Okay, so our first, I'm going to move this little box. Yeah, Jean is our first photos submitted, and the question that came up was, what native plants in Virginia can we do besides azaleas? So I do focus mostly on Virginia plants. To me, if it's native west of the Appalachians, I don't really consider that native to my area. So I am very particular about my native plants. I try to be as local as possible or statewide as possible. And another really great resource is the Virginia Plant Atlas. It's digital, so you can go online and use it, or you can download an app. So it's a really great resource, and those are all at the end of the presentation where I labeled all the different references we use. But one of the things that's important is truly how native is the plant. So one of the things that we did with the foundation plantings is made up a list of some different plants in Virginia that make great substitutes for these Asian azaleas. And these azaleas are everywhere, and they are very pretty, but they don't give us the same wildlife benefits as these different plants listed here. So I'm not going to go through each and every one because I understand that this will be posted, but there are some really beautiful plants. Most of these are easily available at our nurseries too. So like the beautyberry, we just put that in recently in a yard. It's going to give you spring flowers and really remarkable berries that are magenta colored in fall with some pretty fall color. A lot of our native plants do happen to be deciduous. And what we want to do is get people to enjoy the seasonality of our native plants. We rely a lot on evergreens for our foundations. And so one of the things that's going to be a challenge is what kind of plants can take the place of the evergreen green plants that we have currently and still give us enough interest throughout the year. We're going to have to change our thinking a little bit because plants that are evergreen are a little bit rare and tend to be on the acidic loving side. So we don't have a lot of evergreens that can do the alkaline soil that I mentioned earlier. So that's going to be a challenge. But during the wintertime, I think we can bring in the ferns that have winter interest or evergreen fronds. We also have some beautiful ornamental grasses. If you're lucky enough to have a sunny location, some of our ornamental grasses look beautiful as foundation plantings, depending on the height that you're looking for, the colors, the movement. So it may not necessarily be a shrub that we're looking for as your foundation planting. There may be different ways to take us out of those evergreen round pruned circle or, prune shape and into a more interesting world. So that's my 2 cents worth, is have an open mind. It may not be an evergreen subbing for another evergreen. I'm going to challenge you to look at the berries and the bark of the shrubs. I'm going to challenge you to look at grasses and ferns, depending on the sun lighting conditions of your property. So this comes up a lot. I thought I'd throw it in there. Our native azaleas are really wonderful. Azaleas are rhododendrons. They're all the same species or group family. And they are not really great substitutes for the Asian azaleas because our Asian azaleas are used in gardens because they're low mounding, they're evergreen, and they make great foundation plantings. Our native azaleas are showy. They are tall and airy and long-lived. They are very easy to care for if you put the right plant in the right place. They are very graceful. Don't prune them. And Some are very, very fragrant, and we actually have quite a stunning variety of color. So if you have the right space and the right cultural conditions, I urge you to take advantage of that and plant several native azaleas. We have several species available to us, and they're all listed here. They range from white to light pink, pale pinks, darker pinks, and they go to yellows, oranges, and reds. They will start in April and go all the way till July or August, if you pay attention to the Virginia native azaleas and rhododendrons. And a handful of them are evergreen. They get very, very large. They have cultivars now. So you've got rhododendron rosebay. That one's probably the most evergreen of the bunch. And we plant it all the time. It makes a wonderful border, or it's a specimen. Better check your pH. It is acidic loving, so be careful, because if your foundation soil is a little bit on the alkaline side, it may not be as happy and be fussy and slow growing. But if it's happy, it can, a rosebay rhododendron can get 8 feet by 8 feet, 10 feet by 10 feet, even bigger. So I think that was Jean's questions about substitutes for azaleas and how to use native azaleas maybe. And then I started to think that if I did a list for each and every question that came in, it would take a very long time. So now I'm kind of go more to the Q&A style. With the next part of Jean's question, she wanted to know about a moist slope area. So I have lots and lots and lots of plants at my disposal. Can we find out from Jean what, if she was more focused on trees and shrubs, or if she was more interested in the herbaceous layer for her moist slope question?
All right, Jean, either unmute or chat. There she goes. She said, herbaceous layer, not enough room for large trees.
Great, that makes sense. It looked like a corner. And it looked like there were some ferns existing. So it sounds like we need low growing perennials. Is she looking at grasses or anything grass-like?
She says, I've been putting in ferns to try to slow water, maybe shrubs.
Okay. So it's a smaller area. It's got a slope to it, and when it rains, the water kind of the ground stays wet. It doesn't dry up right away. Is that what I'm understanding? Like how moist is moist?
He says correct.
Okay. And is it shady because of the ferns?
Jean, shady? She's not answering.
Okay.
Looks shady to me.
Why?
Yes, it's shady. Okay.
I definitely see ferns, so I figured it was a little bit more on the shady side. So I'm going to go with shady and then maybe also a little bit more moist. So here are some of my favorite lower growing plant material. A lot of these are herbaceous. So you've got your sedges. Sedges really, some of them are evergreen in our area, and they can handle quite the dense shade. In nature, they grow under our canopy trees. So if you have tall oaks, maples even, pines, you can find a carex for almost any tree that you want to plant under. Ferns are also really great idea in the shade. There are 4 ferns that are pretty evergreen for us. One is very well known. It's a Christmas fern. But our wood ferns, the Dryopterius species, if you haven't heard of them, now is the time to go and try them out. We've got Dryopterius Australis and Dryopterius Goldiana. These two ferns will get 3 to 4 feet tall, and if that's too big, they have a little cousin called Dryopterius marginalis. These 3-4 ferns can get you through the wintertime, and so I use them a lot in large mass plantings where I need to fill in a space, whether it's a tiny little space or a larger space. It can give you the ground cover that you need to slow down the water, handle the shade. If you want some color, in addition to the carex, which is the sedges and the ferns, there are lobelias, which comes in the red and blue. So you've got the cardinalis, which is red, brilliant red. When you see them in nature, they just jump out at you in the woods. And then the blue lobelia, the great blue lobelia, is Lobelia syphilitica. We also have...
Let me stop you for a second. Just make sure you're not sharing a different screen. We're seeing Jean's picture still. Is that...
Yes, I'm reading out from another computer.
Oh, that's fine. I just want to make sure. We're good.
Mm-hmm. So with the moisture areas, there's not a lot of plants with a lot of color. You're mostly going to be using your sedges and your ferns to kind of, you know, handle the slope and the erosion. And then you can throw in some lobelia, maybe some chelone. It is hard to find the plants that can do shade, slope, and water. You can try iris, versicolor, and virginica, but I think they need part sun, not full shade, so it depends on how shady this area is. You could also try our hibiscus moschuto, which is a very large plant, so I don't know if this space is big enough. And we have our turtle heads, that's chelone. These are all good water-loving, moisture, slope plants, and they can give you some color in the garden. Good. How's Jean feeling on that? I'm going to move to the next one if that is good.
Yep, she said, thank you so much. Good ideas.
Excellent. All right, this is Debbie's property, and Debbie has a little bit of everything. She's got the east side of the house is in shade. She's working on taking out the evergreen periwinkles and liriope. And we've got some clay soil, which is pretty typical in the area. So that's the top left. And then on the other side of the house, it's all sunny on the west side. And then the bottom pictures are the front of her house. Looks like they face north, and north is the most challenging. So if the front of your home, you're trying to make it beautiful, curb appeal, but it faces north, so it's shady. It's a little bit shady, and that is really tough. So what do? Is, well, we had a client with a similar situation. So we're going to talk about this north facing, because this is the challenge. The south is easy, the west is easy, even the east is easy. But the north is a challenge. You can see that the house itself throws a dense shade along the foundation. So you don't just have tree shade, you may also have your own building shade, which is very, very dense shade. And so this particular home had all the normal, like hollies, azaleas, nandina, yew, nothing native, everything non-native, and some invasive. Here's the holly. What we did was we replaced the holly with a clethra, which is summer sweet. It's a very fragrant plant in the summertime. I try to use it along walkways. It is can handle up to about 6.5 pH. So it is definitely adaptable because it's also can handle wet soil, dry soil. It's a really versatile plant. Get to know your summer sweets because you can use it in a lot of different places. And we have a lot of different cultivars now. So if you want them smaller, you can get them about 3 feet. Otherwise, they can grow 6 or 7 feet. So in the wild, they get taller. So that's the one that's in the corner replacing the holly. And then the low-growing white pom-pom-like plants, those are our smooth hydrangea. You're going to use this plant if you have a shady location. As you can see, it blooms a very, very long time in the summer. This picture was taken at the height of summer. And like the blue mophead, has these wonderful large clusters of white flowers for many, many weeks in the summer. And I like to leave the flowers intact and let them brown into seed heads. There's a Ita Virginica in the middle, inkberry in the back, a dwarf one to stay low under the windows. And then in this first phase, the client mostly had us focus on woody plants. And so we're going to come back for phase 2 and put in the herbaceous layer. So right now, the only herbaceous plants we have in there is the phlox, creeping phlox, not the divericata, and it's evergreen to semi-evergreen, coming in a multitude of colors. So this was a really fun foundation planting that allowed us to move away from the holly to the clethra. It moved away from azaleas to smooth hydrangeas. And these are a great cultivar. They only get about 2.5 feet tall. So like this client, they did not want the hydrangeas to get big. Those windows were sitting about 3 feet off the ground. So we had to use this particular cultivar, Wee White. And it comes 2.5 feet. Then there's another cultivar that's 3 to 4 feet. And then most of them are about 5, 6, 7 feet as you get towards the straight species. So smooth hydrangea for all those with a north-facing foundation situation. This is the plant to put on your Christmas list now, or Valentine's or other holidays, birthdays. The other plant that's in the background there is Ita Virginica. It's a little Henry, even though it looks pretty big. That's another one to get familiar with because it's got wonderful bottle brush flowers. It's got wonderful fall color. It is deciduous, but it gives you so much fall color that you will just start using that instead of burning bush. Start using this Ita for anything that has red leaf in the fall. This will replace it. So the Nandina is gone. The Purus is gone. We actually transplanted it to the back. They didn't want us to throw it out. The yew is gone. They all moved to the back. And now her front yard is all Virginia natives. The inkberry is a cultivar back there because they again wanted smaller plants. So normally the inkberry can get 6 feet tall in nature, but some of the cultivars are 2 to 3 feet, 3 to 4 feet, 4 to 5 feet. And here is the overall look. And this we took in the middle of summer when all of the hydrangea are blooming. So the Ita in the front, we've got some heucheras, coral bells. That's another really great dry shade plant. We put the carexes in there because, again, great dry shade plant. We put more carexes here. Down there's more citronelle. It's heuchera citronelle, Velosa citronelle, which the parent is native. We took out the evergreens that were getting kind of browned out in the middle and replaced it with a redbud, a really great alkaline tolerant native small understory tree for the corners of your home if you keep it 10 feet off. Any questions so far?
I think we're
and
good.
A planting plan.
Yeah, we're good. We can keep going.
Here's the planting plan. All right, so now we have a difficult this is Jan's question. She has an asphalt driveway that it seems to be a little bit on the shady side because she is trying, I think I saw, let me see, it's hidden now, but I think it's a little bit on the shady side because she said something about hostas. The native milkweed likes to relocate here, which means roadside conditions. That's what the native milkweed does. It doesn't mind these tough roadside conditions. So, and then the second part of her question is the bottom of a slope in front of a split rail fence. So we've got a large shrub, I don't know, looks like an azalea from here, but hard to say. Are we looking to replace that, or are we looking for a herbaceous layer around the large shrub?
You want to open your mic? Was it Jan? Or
Yeah, Jan.
type it in? I guess we'll have to guess.
Okay. For these really, really tough areas, or street side areas, as I call them, you've got pollution, urban air, you've got salt or different things that you put on your driveway. You need some really, really tough plants. If you have a full sun condition, then you have a lot of different plants you could do, like our native butterfly weed, which is similar to, it's another milkweed, but it's a lot prettier and it's a lot tamer. So our common milkweed, the Syriaca, gets really, really tall, flops over, definitely, even to me, looks a little on the weedy side. But if you want to do the Asclepias tuberosa, which is the butterfly milkweed, it's bright orange. Now you've got only a 2 to 3 foot plant that mixes well with Liatris and Rudbeckia. This trio of roadside plants will get you through the summer with this wonderful, bright, happy, sunny yellow, cheerful orange, and it looks really great with the violet blue of the Liatris. You got 2 foot Rudbeckia, 3 foot Asclepias tuberosa, and about 3 to 4 foot Liatris. Just remember that trio, and that will work with sunny, dry, tough conditions. There are many other plants you could add to that. We've done monardas, we've done eupatoriums, we've done grasses like little blue stem. So I don't want to get us too far off track, but many, many, many plants can handle that. But that trio is the one to really memorize, because that will get you quite far. What if it's not so sunny? What if it's more shady than sunny? So now we've got tough roadside conditions, but not so sunny. So now we need something for the shade. Still tough though. So now we've got maybe some of the different grasses that we have. So if it's a little bit shadier, we can move towards, let's see. Yeah, this gets a little tougher. Pygmathium is one of my favorite all-time top pollinator, difficult plant for more shady conditions. That is a mountain mint. It's not as showy as like our coneflowers and our Rudbeckias, but it does have this beautiful sheen to it. And if you plant it in large drifts, it's actually a really pretty silvery color. So let's see, let's look at some other shade-loving, tough plants here. Well, the shade is what's killing me. The shade is a little bit tricky. We've got wild Columbine, if you like shade. I don't know if it can handle the roadside conditions like the driveway, but definitely for dry shade, I've used the wild Columbine a lot. We've got some wonderful solidagos and some asters in fall that will give you great color. One of my favorite solidagos, because it's more well-behaved, is the rugosa fireworks, very commonly used, but I also like the Stacia. It's kind of like really cool. White wood asters, the blue wood asters, those are all wonderful. They can handle the shade, and there's now one that's a little bit more ground cover like. It's called Eastern Star is the cultivar name. We've got, how could I forget dry shade? Our coral bells, of course, for foliage color. If you look for the Villosa parentage or the Americana parentage, you'll be fine. These, I put them in a pot. I didn't water them for weeks on end during our drought, and they made it. I mean, I don't know how they did. They're just sitting in a little pot all by themselves, happily like, wow, hey, I don't need water. So don't forget your coral bells have lovely foliage. And one of my favorite coral bells that's not easy to find, but it's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous straight species is Heuchera, Heuchera, longiflora, Longiflora. Really pretty, dappled, marbled, green and white foliage. I use that whenever I can in place of Dale strain. It's really attractive. We've also got some Eucatoriums. So the whole aster group got split off. It's very confusing. Some are Symphyotrocums, some are Eucatoriums. It's a big mess. Just remember they were all asters at one time. Joe Pyeweeds are in there somewhere. Yeah, so those are going to be your dry shade, tough condition type plants. Oh, and the one we tried this year that we hope will work out is Scutellaria ovata. This is a cute little plant. It's a little bit slow to take off, but we have high hopes for it. It's doing well in the shade. Okay. Oh, and then Jan wanted to know what to do at the bottom of a slope in front of a split rail fence behind 2 crepe myrtles. So it says that there's hydrangeas there. So if you've got crepe myrtles and you've already got hydrangeas, it looks like we just need a small ground cover, low growing plant. I'm assuming there's going to be root competition from all the plants there. So we really need kind of ground cover plants. So I've mentioned them before. Even though it's the bottom of a slope, if the water is running off quickly and the water is not sitting there, we're going to go more on the dry side. And so again, the Aquilegias, the Phlox divaricatas, those will work for spring. For summer, we've got the Scutellaria, and for fall, we've got the asters. We've got the mist flower, which is Conoclinium. We've got solidagos. That should get you started, depending on how tall, what color, what season. So those are some ideas for the bottom of the slope in front of the split rail fence. All right. This question came in from Paige. And Paige is lucky enough to live at the waterfront. I gotta move this box. It's blocking everything. Oh, wow, that makes a difference. And all of these windows face the southwest. So that's pretty darn sunny. My guess is because of how sunny it is and how many windows are there, and she's looking out at the water, she probably doesn't want anything tall at all. I would definitely try to put a few shrubs there, things that can handle the direct sun and things that can handle it being pretty dry. So for alkaline soil near a foundation that can tolerate full sun and not be too tall, one of your best plants will be St. John's wort. And there are several that are native to Virginia. I use the densiflorum a lot. There are some cultivars out there. They stay pretty small and low growing, and they give you this wonderful, cheery, sunny yellow color in summertime when a lot of things are going, it becomes more green again. We've got the Hypericum densiflorum, which is St. John's wort. And a really good combination with this, believe it or not, is Chasmanthium Latifolium. Yes, river oats. That is a very versatile grass. The grass with the seed heads, and then they bloom at the same time. It's a really pretty combination if you wanted to do a swath of grasses with the shrubs, because grasses do look really good with winter interest. The other plants to try would be bayberries and Itias. I will mention the Itea again because you can get them in small size cultivars. With the Little Henry, they usually stay below 3 feet, and with bayberry, go for Don's Dwarf. The bayberry is a really great plant because it fixes nitrogen, so it's also salt tolerant. It doesn't matter. I didn't mention what kind of waterfront. I don't know if it's tidal or not, so I don't know how much salt to worry about. But the bayberry is a really, really good alkaline tolerant, sun tolerant plant for waterfront. We've also got, oh, how can we forget? 9-bark. My goodness, why haven't I mentioned this one before? If you have that bright, bright sun, you've got to put 9-bark on your list. The Latin name is going to be Physocarpus opifolius. This will all be posted. I don't expect you to remember it. Maybe I'll quiz you at the end. But 9-bark. The straight species is not as interesting as the cultivars, but so for a designer, the cultivars are just really great because I've got golden leaves ones, I've got maroon leaves, I've got orange, I've got a lot of different colors there. What I just love about 9-bark is in the wintertime, as they get more mature, the bark gets a little peely. So it's like got shaggy bark, got cute little flowers, has a really nice compact form, really great foundation plant. 9-bark, 9-bark, 9-bark. We also have some sumacs that are low growing, full sun, alkaline tolerant. Try Rus aromatica grow low, especially if you have a little bit of a hill. This plant will completely hold that hill in place, but it needs full sun. We've also got some of our native roses. There's the Rosa carolina and Rosa palustris. Both of them are very alkaline tolerant, and both of them enjoy the full sun. And then 2 more plants that I truly love for the full sun, Spirea Alba, not the Japanese Spirea that's everywhere. No, no, no. You've got to hunt around and find the Spirea Alba, A-L-B-A. So that's called meadow sweet. This sweet little native is going to give you white flowers June through September. So we don't need those Japanese Spireas. After you fall in love with the Virginia Spirea, just forget about those Japanese ones. All right, then Viburnum. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I could talk about Viburnum for 5 hours here, but you got to look for the native one because we got a lot of Viburnums out there. Some of them are invasive, so stay away from the invasive ones and go for Blackpool Viburnum. This one you need more space, so this is not a small one. I wouldn't put it in front of these beautiful windows, but I do want to mention this plant for those of you, like this one is facing southeast corner. This plant, if you limb it up, it is gorgeous. It can compete with a crepe myrtle. It does get big, so I would put it in the corner. This is the one I would put in the southeast corner to anchor that corner right there. All right, Paige, hopefully that helps.
Great, that's terrific. She did note that it is brackish water, and so let people know that we have noted salt tolerance in our plant search app wherever we could find the information.
Excellent. Yes, that's a whole different, when you got brackish water, whew, okay, that's a separate little list of plants. But the bayberry is good, and she can get the dwarf, and it will do well.
Great.
Some of the other plants will do well too.
She says
All
thank you.
right. Oops, how do I? Ooh, all right, got a little too quick on the draw there. All right, now we're at with Susan. I believe she said Vienna, can't remember 100%, but Susan sent us a picture of her 5 tired-looking, overgrown boxwoods from 2 angles, from the front, from the street front, that's the top left, and then from her house, you can see the bottom ones. What she is, you know, sad about is over time, even though they've taken the time to prune them and they put a lot of TLC, is the boxwoods are getting leggy. And so she doesn't like the look. Unfortunately, a lot of plants do that. So you can fill it in the bottom with ground cover to hide the legginess instead of taking out the boxwoods. But if you want to replace the boxwoods, that's going to be even tougher, because there's again not a lot of evergreen plants that will work next to a foundation. Probably your Bayberry is the best fit for that because of the adaptability, the alkaline tolerance, and they are a little bit adaptable, full sun to part shade. They don't like full shade, so if that's a shady location, that won't work. So the Bayberry is probably the best evergreen replacement for the boxwood, and the dwarf, Don's dwarf, is probably the right size for staying below 4 feet. And it's prunable and will have that wonderful fragrance. That's what the Bayberry candle is named after. If you want the blueberries, you have to have a male, like typical, 1 male for every 5 to 7 females. Yes, that 1 male gets to pollinate all 7 females. So if you do want berries, try to get the male, which I think is Tom's dwarf, not Don's dwarf, and that will give you the berries. All right, I think it was just these 5, so I recommend doing ground cover to hide the legginess. You could do some really nice things there, but I didn't see a question about ground cover. So, all right, hope that helped, Susan. Okay, Pat. Pat has a really cool bed here. Unfortunately, Pat, if she's on the line, I would like to find out what kind of sunlight it's getting, moisture, anything about maybe the soil itself or the pH, anything like that would be a little bit helpful. If not, we can kind of just guess.
I'm on, and I have a southern exposure. This gets, you know, maybe midday solid sun, and then, you know, it's sort of dappled afternoon sun. And so what I've done here is I have a button bush on the right side, and I have a dwarf button bush in front of the creeping hydrangea. And I'm very comfortable with the Sugar Shack one, but I'm worried that I'm going to end up with something that's just huge on the right, but I really love button bush. I have also added blue stem grass underneath the button bush. I also have a deep purple coral bell beneath the button bush, and I've introduced a different variegated kind of coral bells around the bottom of the button bush on the Sugar Shack one. I also have false indigo in there, which I thought might be interesting, a vase shape on that blank wall, but I'm worried that I've just sort of overloaded it.
Okay, so I did notice that you do like plants, because there's a cephalotaxis in there and some of the plants you mentioned. So it sounds like you enjoy more unusual plants. So I can introduce something that's more interesting and not just the Itias and the Clethras. I urge you, Pat, to take a look at some of the 9 barks. Especially if you're interested in a little bit of foliage variation, you can go with the straight species, but when I see your brick like that, I want to put a golden leaf 9-bark somewhere. And the 9-bark is compact. So if you don't want it to get too big, it's a great plant to contrast with your false indigo. I think we did that at Hearn and Friends, right, Margaret? We did some 9-bark with some Batesia and some grasses. And so this kind of reminds me of that vignette a little bit. So you're on track, Pat. I think you should do some different grasses, maybe lower growing grasses, maybe the purple love grass, or maybe a low-growing Muhlenbergia grass, which is the fluffy, what do you call it? What's the common name?
Muhly grass.
Muhlenbergia. Yes. And then I think that the 9-bark is one to look at. I also think about that Spirea. You know, I poo-poo the Japanese ones all the time, but if you can get a hold of a Virginia native sweet spire, the Spirea Alba, it loves that sun condition, and they are compact. So supposedly, you know, growing about 3 to 6, and you could probably prune it. So that would be something fun to try to get a hold of, because that's harder to find, and it would be a conversation starter. Those are my 2 immediate reactions. If you like the color yellow, you could try that St. John's wort, because it has the yellow flowers for the full sun, the alkaline conditions. If you want the a little bit of erosion control, it looks pretty flat. So let's say you also want a little bit of erosion control. That Rus aromatica grollo is so popular with my clients. It has those really pretty red berries. The fall color is really attractive. The leaves are really sweet looking, really cute, compact plant. Doesn't get more than 2.5 feet tall. And I think it's that height that people like. This one is not evergreen, but I love this plant for, again, more sunny conditions. Comptonia peregrina, or sweet fern. I saw a whole mass of this planting, and it's really adorable. It's called a sweet fern because the foliage looks like a fern. It is a shrub, and again, it stays compact, 3 foot. So I've named several compact, alkaline-loving plants.
And is that, Adele, is that buttonbush going to be too big for that space, do you think?
Actually, the cultivar you named sounds like the dwarf that I have not put in yet. I've only put in the straight species. And the straight species doesn't get very big. So I've always been happy with just going with the straight species.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. You bet. All right. Anything else, Pat?
If I might ask one other question,
Sure.
I'm reading a lot about living mulch rather than mulch. And is there something you would recommend for a living mulch amidst?
Yes. I think that's the fancy, people come up with all these new terms. I mean, it's still, to me, ground cover, but
Yeah.
okay, living mulch. For it to coexist with the other plants that we've talked about, I'm going to talk about dry shade plants, because that's what will work best with some of the ones we just talked about. So we're going to talk about the wild Columbine again. We're going to talk about those asters, the white wood aster, the blue wood asters. There's a wood aster, Pat, that's very low growing. It gets no more than 12, 15 inches. It's like a ground cover. It makes a great living mulch. It just creeps around, and it's going to bloom in fall, a weird time of year. So that keep your eye out for that one. That Solidago Sasia that I keep bragging about, that's another cool one, because it's going to stay lower to the ground than the others. For summertime, the Pygmathium, which is the mountain mint, and the Scutellaria ovata, think those are, the Pygmathium will get a little bit taller, about 3 feet. The Scutellaria is about 18 inches at the most. It's a clumper, not a spreader, but if you decide to plant a drift of it, I think it'll do very well. Phlox divaricata, that's another one that I do a lot of. Christmas ferns, that's a little bit probably too sunny, but Those are all good, good dry soil plants. And this is sunnier. I was doing shade. We could do alliums. We could do, oh, and of course our trio, the Asclepias, tuberosa, the Rudbeckia, and the Liatris. Because it's sunny, you have a lot more choices. There's a really cool ground cover called Wine Cups. If you like a really bright, hot pink color, I started putting that in some of my HOA plantings in front of the monuments, because I can't, they have to stay low growing. So I'm thinking of like really ground cover type. It's Callerho Involum, oh, I can't even pronounce it, but it's called Wine Cups. Wine Cups. And it's just a pop of magenta in the middle of summer. Oh yes, and oh, I don't even know how to pronounce this one, but the another cool sun-loving ground cover type plant would be the Ornamental or sundrops. They're more of a yellow blooming. Ornithera, Oenothera. Oh, Ruellia. How can I forget Ruellia? It's a little bit taller than the ones I've mentioned. You let that Ruellia creep around. It's a wild petunia, like a lavender color. You can let that just creep around underneath your shrubs, your taller shrubs. Oh yeah, I could go on and on for sun lovers. Oh, and then for a grass that's a little bit fun for sun, try our prairie drop seed. It's not 100%. I mean, there's one county that it's native in Virginia, so it's a native Virginia plant, but I don't think it's really native. Anyways, it's called Sporabilis heterolepis or heterolepis, or anyways, it's prairie drop seed. Oh, that is a cutie. Yes, that'll be a great ground cover, sun-loving grass that can handle that area.
Thank you.
Hope that helps, Pat.
That was great.
All right. All right. Margaret. Is Margaret still around? I think it's Margaret. So Margaret has a very sunny location, dry. So we've talked about these plants in the past, but we'll go over again some of my favorites. When it comes to alkaline, because it's near the foundation, full sun, compact, we don't want it too tall. Well, she could do tall because she doesn't have windows on the long side, but on the one with the windows, it's got to stay a little bit shorter. So we have the button bush. The button bush is great. The sweet fern. Now she can do taller. Here are two really awesome plants. I haven't spent a lot of time, but you need height. So you've got your silky dogwood and you've got your gray dogwood. For those of you who have the condition that Margaret has on the top right and the bottom two, where you can let the plant get a little bit taller. So the silky dogwood is about 6 to 8 feet, and the gray dogwood is maybe 6 to 8 feet also. Now you have this amazing plant with white flowers in late spring, early summer. Both of them have berries. The silky dogwood has the blue berries. The gray dogwood has white berries on red stems. And both of them have amazing dogwood color. So orange, reds, and purples. So dogwood is a great plant, and we don't just, we always do the flowering dogwood, which has the anthracnose. Now you can do the shrubs as a replacement along these walls, these bearing walls, and you're going to have a lot more interest. So remember those two, the silky dogwood and the gray dogwood. Perfect for foundations where you don't have to worry about the windows.
Oh, this is excellent. Thank you.
You bet. All right, and then don't forget, you still have my favorites, the Ita Virginica, your Bayberries, which is your Morellas, or some people still call them Myrica. The two that I recommend are Caroliniensis and Cerifera, because the Pennsylvanica is not evergreen as much here. It's the reverse psychology. It gets us all mixed up. Pennsylvanica is named after Pennsylvania. You would think it's a northern bayberry. It should be hardier, but it's actually the reverse. It's less hardy for us. So don't get the Pennsylvanica, get the Cerifera or the Caroliniensis. They are true Virginia bayberries. They're a little bit more coastal, but they will work if you have the right plant to the right location. Don't forget that 9 bark. Yay to the 9 bark. Roots grow low, that's the fragrant sumac. Again, I'm just naming the alkaline, full sun plants that are low growing. For roses, we've got Rosa carolina, Rosa palustris, and then we've got some, the viburnums. Here's one I haven't talked about, because again, Margaret, you have that lovely, long, empty area.
Open
And
palette.
I just want to cover it with plants. So here's some edibles to think about. Our native hazelnut is so much fun, and you can enjoy the nuts. Or what about our elderberry? So if you want edibles in your yard, they will handle the alkaline soil, the full sun. They're easy care, very low maintenance, and you get edibility out of it too. So add those to your list if you have a larger, no window type situation like Margaret. The American hazelnut and the common elderberry or the red elderberry. Fantastic alkaline loving plants, very low maintenance.
I'm very excited. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Okay. Let's go to another question. Because I don't, was Margaret on the line or?
Yeah, that was her answering.
Yes,
That was her.
Oh,
yes,
great.
I've been
Okay,
on.
good,
Yes,
good,
I've been
good.
on the line.
Excellent.
Yes, I'm here.
Margot's question. Okay, wow, Margot, you got a lot going on. Sorry to hear that you're losing some of your property to the city. Well, the city can do what they want. All right.
Great ideas.
In a way, we kind of think the cedars have lived a good life, so it's time for a change anyways. So my very, very high recommendation for roadside conditions is going to be, guess what? Morella, bayberry, because it's salt tolerant. Here's my biggest example. In Tyson's Corner, where my office is located, along Route 7, when they built that elevated metro, they just planted all these bayberries down the middle of Route 7, where, you know, hundreds of thousands of cars are polluting that little median every day. And so it's just very urban, right through that Route 7 area. It's all native bayberry, and it's a straight species because it's over my head now. They planted it as little number 3s, which is 3 gallons, and let's see, that was 10 years ago, and they prune them back every other year or so. They're about 12 feet tall. They make a great hedge if you want to hedge-like material to take the place of the cedars. If you want it shorter, do the cultivar, Donsdorf. Remember, if you want berries, do a male for every 5 to 7. If you don't care about the berries, you can just, you know, do all females or all males. But that's going to be for evergreen, for salt tolerance, for hedging. That makes a great hedge along the street. What else was on here? I mean, there are other plant material, but that's the one that like really jumps to mind. Would be interested to see the list of plants. Make sure that they are suggesting good plants for you. What else? Oh, pawpaws and winterberries. Pawpaws are understory trees. They actually can be planted very close together if you want to start a grove of pawpaws. You need to make sure you get local ecotypes. There's some kind of pollination. I don't know all the scientific wording, but we did a pawpaw grove this summer, and Nature by Design was super helpful. Randy, he actually got us like 2 ecotype E and 1 ecotype C. And anyways, it's important to make sure you work that out with Randy, because I was just going to buy 3 pawpaws. He goes, no, you need 2 of these, 1 of these. I'm like, okay. So for anyone looking for pawpaws, go to Randy at Nature by Design. He can get you some good pawpaws. Winterberries, yeah, that's a great plant. Definitely can handle wet, dry. So if I put them in rain gardens all the time, which is inundations of lots of water when it rains, and then dry, dry, dry in between. So if that's what you've got an area that gets a lot of water at one time, but then it's dry in between. That's a good place for a winterberry, but it's pretty adaptable. So you can put it. It naturally wants to be in wetter areas. It likes wet feet. So put your winterberry where there's a little bit more water. All right. Is Margot on the line too, or?
Sure.
You are? All right, moving right along. If I mispronounce your name, I deeply apologize, Rohini. I love porches. I think they're absolutely fantastic. It looked like we're looking for a front foundation shrub to take the place of the azaleas. We have that list early on. Because it's shady, I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend that smooth hydrangea because it's compact. But if you, and I just love how long it flowers. And I can do the straight species, or I can do some of the cultivars. Annabelle has been out there forever. It's a little bit bigger. Try that wee white if you want a tiny little hydrangea, 2.5, 3 feet at the most, big giant white pom-poms of flowers. But smooth hydrangea is really a terrific plant for north front foundations, higher alkaline soil. There are a few others. You could do, believe it or not, button bush is pretty versatile if you want to try it. And you can get the smaller cultivar that was mentioned earlier. You could do the Ikea can take some shade. That's about it. It's hard with that full shade. It looks like it's very shady, 1 to 2 hours of sun. All right. Oh my, yes, Jane. Jane sent in an essay. Jane, if you're on the line, wow, kudos to you for putting that together. The one that I'm going to focus on is this Mahonia, and I apologize that I am focused on it. Please don't buy any more Mahonia. Here's my little spiel, and it's just to warn us that I am a little bit more purist than others. If the plant is not native to Virginia, it has the probability one day of being invasive. So Mahonia, especially some of them are from China, BLEI, some of them are from the West Coast. Either way, Maryland Invasive Species Council wrote up this long article about its invasive tendencies, and I have known about it for a while that it's invasive because of all the berries that it produces, and it just gets everywhere. Mahonia is not nice in Virginia. I would definitely take it off the list. So and this brings me to some other popular plants that have escaped cultivation. Our Magnolia grandiflora is not native to Virginia. It is an escapee. So is Hydrangea curcifolia, that beautiful oak leaf hydrangea that's everywhere now. It is not native to Virginia. Echinacea purpurea, which is coneflower, another escapee. Or Nacella tenuissima, which is a very popular landscape architect grass. Don't plant these plants on this page, because they are going to escape cultivation. Fothergilla is another one I had to give up. There are more and more of these every day, but this is the hot list. These are the ones I'm like, oh no, I can't plant these anymore because they are not native to Virginia. So it's not just I want to plant more natives, I want to stop putting in bad plants too. And so be careful. All right, sorry, Jane. Didn't mean to pick on you there. It looks so pretty in the picture, bad plant. All right. Jane has a beautiful, beautiful property. She's got a lot going on. Though I focused on the front because of the foundation video conference. She has a lot going on. Because she faces southeast, she's in that right in the middle, that part sun, part shade. It's not full sun, it's not full shade. So we haven't talked a lot about this condition as much, but remember, we have a number of plants that can span more than just full sun or more than just full shade. It sounded like she was focused on perennials though, so I'm not going to go too much into shrubs again. We've already talked a lot about it. She wanted to know if I think Joe Pyeweed would work. She named a few plants. I'm sorry if I forgot. I thought I wrote it on here, but I didn't. Is Jane on the line or?
Yes.
Yes. Yep, I'm here. Yes, and I
Oh,
will
okay.
take back that Mahoney. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you.
that's okay.
How can I help you, Jane?
Well, I'm looking for natives that would look neat and in front of a house. I get a little nervous with some of them that can get unruly.
Yes, messy is not my thing either. So we have 4 to 5 hours of sun. Is it dappled sun, or is any of it coming from the house of, say, dense building shade?
I would say it's mostly dappled. What you see there on the bottom left is what we get for about 4 hours. And I do get more sun over by the bird bath.
Okay. So in the shadier areas, write these down. Wild Columbine for shadier areas. It can handle part shade to full shade. The asters that I talked about, the whitewood aster, the bluewood asters. Some are taller than others. One's white, one's blue, anywhere from the creeper, ground cover, to about 3 feet tall. We've got, mist flower is a really good plant that will fill in your space. It's going to be about 3 feet tall when mature. It does slowly spread around. So if you don't want a lot of them, you do have to keep an eye on it.
Did you
for
say
spring,
mint flower?
Mist, M-I-S-T, mist flower. Phlox savaricata for springtime. I love that plant. And its relative is the creeping phlox, Phlox stolonifera. One is woodland phlox and one is creeping phlox. Both of them are good. That Scutellaria I've mentioned, Christmas ferns, the mountain mint that I've mentioned, the solidago. These are all lower growing perennial style plants that will enjoy a shadier condition. The sunnier it gets, let me know when you're ready. You have a lot more choices as it gets sunnier. You could start putting in allium. You can put in some grasses. Our milkweeds are popular. The Syriaca is the one to be careful of because that's the one that looks weedy. But that tuberosa, that combo that I talked earlier on, is really quite pretty. The tuberosa plus the rudbeckia plus the liatris is a trio that looks pretty, is long blooming, low maintenance. And what I love most about it is the seed heads. After it finishes flowering, the wildlife, the birds, the insects, they will still feed on the seed heads. I would leave them up all winter. I think they're beautiful. So that's a new look. I don't know if you're into the seed heads. So you can cut them off too, but if you can leave them up, your birds are going to enjoy them. Your songbirds and my birds that stick around this area that don't migrate. Let's see, we've got some, here's a fun one. Rattlesnake master. looks nice with Monardas and looks nice with the Pygmathium. I mean, there's so many when it comes to sun. We've talked about the grasses, like the, oh, and if you want low growing, we talked about the Ornithera and the wine cups. So there's sundrops and there's wine cups. Those are creepers. There's wild petunia that'll crawl around and look nice and bloom for a very long time. And then for the grasses, little blue stem, big blue stem, but I like little blue stem better. Panicum, switchgrass. We haven't spent that much time talking about switchgrass. If you've got enough sun, you could do the switchgrass and that prairie drop seed. These are 3 really good grasses I use a lot. Little blue stem, the other one is switchgrass, and then the prairie drop seed. And then you could add in some other grasses too. I don't know how you feel about grasses, but grasses gives you winter interest, which really look nice against the foundation.
That sounds wonderful. What about the dwarf Joe pieweed? Will that work there? Dwarf?
Yes, that'll look good with the rattlesnake master. I have planted those together. They're a little bit taller. Put them in the back because they will, even though it's little Joe pie, he still gets about 4, 5, 6 feet. Little Joe. So regular Joe is very tall. Yes, thanks for reminding me. Yep.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.